It's your friendly neighborhood Liz here. I just wanted to do a little bit of a life update. Um, it's been 11 weeks since my mom passed away. And just thinking about like the stages that you go through, Um, some days I feel like I'm past the anger, and some days I feel like I'm past the deep grief part, like I'm not crying every day like I was. For a few weeks, I was pretty much sobbing myself to sleep every night. And after my husband would go to bed, I would stay downstairs and just sit on the couch and cry. Um, like I didn't want anybody to see me crying. I didn't want anybody to see me going through that. Um, I don't want to say, like, is that normal? Because I don't think there is a normal. Um, I think everybody processes loss differently. Um, but I'm gonna insert here a clip I made right after she passed away, and then come back and just kind of talk about what I was feeling then and where I am now. And I'm sure anybody who's gone through that kind of a loss, would understand. This is going to be a bit of a departure from my normal. Um, most of what I have is travel related, but um, I wanted to talk about grief, um, trying to process my grieving um, over the loss of my mom, who passed away earlier this month. So maybe it'll help somebody. Maybe dogs. Um, you know, I'm sure some of you can relate to the topic. Just trying to process it all. Drowning in grief. Right now, I have a hard time even saying it out loud. The thing is, we all arrive at this place. And if you haven't already, you will someday. Those of us who are kind of maybe more reserved or introverted or shy, or however you want to say it, I think live kind of on the periphery. We're outsiders looking in a lot of times. I think she, the last few years, she started finally kind of coming out of herself, out of her shell, and where she lived, the community she lived in. She was in independent living, and she started kind of finding herself and making friends. And so many people came up to us and told us funny stories about her, or stories of her being kind to others. So it was really I think it really helped me to know how loved she was there, and that she was appreciated, there. And she had friends. She had friends where she lived, and she was making connections, and I'm so happy she was able to find that. And I just wish she had had more time to enjoy that part of her life. Yeah. And I know I'm looking at it through my own lens here, my own point of view, speaking as a very kind of quiet and reserved person, like, I seem to perpetually be in need of a haircut. So, anyways, yeah, so during those first few weeks, like, I was just overwhelmed with the sadness and anger, and I kept going through a loop of what ifs and feeling like I had been unanchored. With my dad and caregiving for him his last 2 years, I had the long goodbye. He had Alzheimer's. So I witnessed him slipping away a little bit every day. But I also had time to get to know him in a different light. And that caregiving, it changed how I saw him. It changed how I viewed memories, both good and bad. Learning more about his childhood put a lot of things into a different perspective for me. And in many ways, Alzheimer's gave me my dad back. It gave me the dad from my really young childhood. And the circumstances of it suck, but I'm grateful for that experience. With my mom, the manner of her death was such a shock to me. Like, I think that's where some of this anger that I'm feeling comes from. Like, we knew her time was limited. Cancer can go suck ass. But I thought we had some time. I thought, maybe 6 months, maybe another year. But I thought we had some time. We were making plans to take her on a little trip. I was thinking ahead to planning another staycation for her over the holidays. I was even looking into, like, would it be possible to take her on a cruise? Like, I know her health is really failing, and I knew it would be difficult for us as caregivers. It would be difficult. And I had a lot of questions that, like, I finally wanted to ask her. I felt like I was ready to ask her and to talk to her about some things, and I can't. I can't do that now. One of the things, her last clearly spoken words to me, she said to me, and I, like, this was loud and brusque. Like, she had not really been talking much at all for several days. But this was like she was making it known. Um, her words were, "Elizabeth, let me go." And when she said that, like in my mind, I was telling myself, well, that's not what she meant, you know. I was telling myself, well, she's just upset because we're having to turn her, you know, and perform those kinds of caregiving duties that have to be taken care of when somebody is bedbound, you know. So I was telling myself that's what she was upset about. She was telling me to let go of her and stop turning her, you know. But like, I think deep down, like, I understood. She was telling me that she was done fighting. And that has been so hard to accept. Because up until this fall, like every time, and she had been falling quite a bit, you know. She was getting weaker from the cancer. So up until that point, you know, she would fall, hospital, rehab, and she would fight her way through rehab. Like, she hated going to rehab. But she would fight her way through it. She would do the PT when she got back to her apartment. Like, she would go down to the PT room in her community and she would bust her butt trying to get her strength back. She would fight to get her strength back. And like this last time, there was no fight. So that's hard. And it's also hard realizing she had been hiding how really sick she was, like how terrible she felt. She had been hiding it from everybody. I didn't share the other video that I made when I made it because, like, I felt like, okay, I need to sit on this. I need to think about this. And looking back now, like, I'm glad that I made a record of what I was feeling during those first few days, that kind of swirl of emotion. Like, because when you're in it, you don't think you're ever going to get out of it. And I got out of it, you know. I still go through the what ifs. What if she hadn't have fallen when she did? What if we had been able to bring her down to our house for a little vacation? What if we had been able to get her to move back down here with us, where my husband and I um, could have her nearby and be watching over her again, you know? And I recognize, like, the logical part of me recognizes that's a no-win game going through all those what ifs. I still feel paralyzed about her belongings, her stuff, because I have a lot of it. I have a lot of it to go through. But right now, I feel like departing with her things is admitting that she's no longer here. And I haven't been ready to do that. Like, it makes no sense, the logic side of my brain. Like, I realize this purely emotion driven. I still have the urge to call her and share things with her that's going on in our lives. And then I get hit with the realization that you can't call her. She's not there. So those moments are hard. I'm not crying every day like I was. Like, I'm not sitting downstairs in the dark after everyone goes to bed and just sobbing, which is what I had been doing. Just because, I don't know, like, face to face, even with my own family, I feel like I don't want to let all this emotion out. And like, that makes no sense to me. I've always been like a really emotional person. Like, I've never had an issue with showing my emotion. Like, it's there for everybody to see. And for whatever reason right now, like, I feel like I can't do that in front of people I actually know. And it makes no sense. But I'm not crying every day. I maybe cry a few times a week now. Um, I really only cry myself to sleep when I get stuck in one of those what if loops, or I start remembering like some of the things I wanted to say to her, and it'll just go over and over in my head, and it takes me a while to quiet that down so I can go to sleep. Like, in addition to starting therapy, I started listening to Anderson Cooper does a podcast called All There Is, where he and his guests talk about grief, talk about things that they have been going through, loss in their lives. And that has been immensely helpful to me to hear other people's journey. So I'm thankful that he does that podcast and it's out there. Yeah. And other than that, I mean, if you've got words of advice, if you've got little tricks to manage those what if loops, put it in the comments. I read everything. So, and I appreciate you listening to me ramble. Yeah.